Support for this program is provided by the men and women of the Louisiana Forestry Association. Through sustainable forestry, LFA members promote the health and productivity of Louisiana's forests for generations to come. And the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting.
Good evening, I'm Beth Courtney, and I'm glad to welcome you to another episode of Louisiana Public Square, the program where our focus is on you, the citizen, and your opinions on issues affecting our state. This year, several different hosts have helped us moderate our show, including Robert Travis Scott with the Public Affairs Research Council, LPB's own Shauna Sanford. We've also involved Kirby Goodell from our partner LSU's Public Policy Research Lab, and tonight, also from the lab, we welcome Patricia Smith as our guest host. Welcome, Pat.
Thank you.
Well, Patricia is the interim operations manager at the lab and currently working on her doctorate at LSU's Manship School of Mass Communication.
Thanks, Beth. It's a great opportunity, and I'm looking forward to hearing what our audience members have to say about tonight's topic. Hilary Swank, John Malkovich, Sylvester Stallone, Catherine Zeta-Jones. These are just a few of the celebrities you may have spotted on the streets of cities across the state of Louisiana. Thanks to special film industry tax credit, the Bayou State currently hosts more motion picture productions than any other state in the country, excluding California and New York.
Well, the state's film tax credit program has not been without controversy. Abuse in the past led to bribery charges against the former film commissioner, and the incentive was refined in response to projects seeking credits for building luxury condo developments wrapped around film studios. Well, while Louisiana was the first state in the nation to enact motion picture tax credit legislation, today 43 states offer some kind of production tax credit. The increased competition has driven the state to add a portfolio of entertainment incentives, including tax breaks for sound recording, digital media, and live performances. So, is the state getting its bang for its buck from the film tax credits? And who exactly is profiting from filmmaking in what's being called Hollywood South? Nearly 100 years ago, it was the allure of the exotic jungles of Avery Island that drew the producers of Tarzan of the Apes to Louisiana. Flash forward to 2010, and filmmakers staged the extraterrestrial Battle Los Angeles on the streets of Shreveport and Baton Rouge for a different reason.
The incentives have been the drawing card to bring people here.
Paul Ledford is a production sound mixer who worked on the Columbia Pictures film. He says that while Louisiana has always offered the draw of colorful locations, the state's film tax credits have been a boon to the industry and his career.
Now, with this increased amount of work, I can stay here and I can continue to do what I have wanted to do in my craft, and I can be at home, or I can be close to home, over the weekends. And so that's helped me stay here in the state and at the same time train, newcomers along the way.
Mary Kornhauser is an LSU professor employed by the HBO series Treme, the third local writer hired for the show through the tax incentive program.
This is my best professional for hire experience I've ever had in my life.
In the farthest corner of America lies the nation's largest swamp.
The incentives have also attracted cable networks like the History Channel to the state, creating stars like Troy Landry from Pierre Park. A member of the Swamp People reality series, Landry sees himself as an ambassador for South Louisiana's unique culture.
I think that's a lot of the show's success is not just the beauty of the swamps or the danger of the alligators, but the people that's on the show also. I think is, sharing with the rest of the world what we do. And I think that's why people like it so much and what makes it so popular.
Since the Louisiana Motion Picture Incentive Act was passed in 2022, nearly 500 movies and television shows have been filmed in Louisiana. According to a recent report, productions in 2010 alone created an economic impact of $1.1 billion. The The first movie produced under the program was Ray, which was shot in New Orleans. But following Hurricane Katrina, new production work shifted to Shreveport, spawning facilities like Wave Studios and others in the northern part of the state.
In Shreveport alone, we have Stageworks. Millennium has created studios and sound stages here. We have this Bill Joyce animation studio, Moonbot Studios, which is extraordinary.
Alissa Kantrow is a Louisiana producer who has witnessed the growth of the film industry and workforce firsthand.
When I first started in the industry in 1995, we had to bring the majority of crew, cast, and equipment in from out of state. A lot of it came in from California or Florida, Texas, New York for the most part. And since the incentives, you can go on just about any production that's shooting in and around Louisiana, and I would say 80 to 90%, if not more, is all locally found, including talent, crew, cast.
Growth of the film industry in Shreveport helped to forge a rare North-South Louisiana alliance in 1929, when the incentive was due to be phased out. Instead, the legislature made the tax break permanent, as well as increased it from 25 to 30%.
On top of that, we offer a 5% credit for the hiring of Louisiana labor. So you or I theoretically can get hired by a motion picture and they can save an additional 5% on our labor costs, and that equates to 35%.
Chris Stelly is director of film for Louisiana Entertainment, a division of Louisiana Economic Development. He says the state further shored up the incentive in 1929 by offering 3 options for its use.
You earn $1 worth of tax credit. One, the easiest and the most beneficial is to utilize it to offset any of your personal or corporate income taxes. The second option is to transfer it on the open market for whatever that rate may be. But the third and most stabilizing option that we've seen to date is the state now guarantees 85 cents on the dollar, meaning if you have $1 million worth of tax credits, the state will buy them back for you and give you a check for $850,000.
This change generated investment in 2010 from just 4 films equal to the total film activity for 29. And the increased production is reversing the state's brain drain, Stelly says, while bringing in substantial revenue.
For every dollar that we invest, for film in particular, $5.50 some odd cent trickles through the economy. That's a good return on that investment.
Are you getting a number of jobs? Yes. Are you getting back in terms of state revenues what you are putting out in terms of the tax credits? The answer is no.
Economist Jim Richardson says despite the 8,000 new jobs created in the state's film sector, the tax incentives are not paying for themselves.
Over the last 3 years, the state has averaged about $145 million in credits for the film industry. The taxes generated that will be coming to the state over those 3 years have averaged about $20 to $25 million a year. So from that perspective, no, the state is not getting its money back.
But Richardson points out if the goal is to get the film industry here and have it recurring, mission accomplished.
Now the question is, at what point do we say, well, at some point they need to pay their own way. We can't continue to subsidize them forever because we have other things we need to do with the money. And that's a choice we'll have to make at some point down the line.
When that time comes, Diego Martinez, president of Shreveport's Millennium Studio, feels the state will be ready.
When there are no more incentives, everyone will say, well, it's Louisiana. We should be in Louisiana. And I think we're headed that way. We're still positioned as one of the top states in the country, you know, really behind New York and California. We took advantage of of that head start, and we've built a great crew base here. You know, the facilities are going up. And if we continue this way, I think this is a viable industry that's going to impact the state for a long time.
Joining us in our studio to discuss the Film Incentive Program are Baton Rouge area residents who were randomly recruited by LSU's Public Policy Research Lab. Also joining us are 2 high school students representing the Legislative Youth Advisory Council, one student from Anacoco, the other from Chalmette. Welcome, everyone. Let's review some of the survey responses. When posed with the statement, movie production incentives are important because they make Louisiana more competitive with other states, a large majority of respondents, a total of 89%, either strongly agreed or somewhat agreed with the statement. 7% were unsure and 2% disagreed. when posed with a statement suggesting the jobs movie productions create are good for the economy, even if they're temporary and part-time. Nearly all of those surveyed, a total of 96%, either agreed somewhat or strongly agreed with the statement. 4% were neutral. And when asked if they would support eliminating or reducing the tax credit, given Louisiana's current budget shortfall, 46% of respondents would reduce or eliminate the credit. 39% oppose any changes to the incentive, and 14% were unsure. So let's start there. Are the film industry tax credits a good idea considering the lost tax revenue to the state? Erica, you're an educator. What are the concerns you have about the large incentives?
Well, my concern is whether or not the money or the percentage of the money, what percentage of the money is going towards education. You know, the buses, school buses need seatbelts. Classes need more computers, more school supplies, so that's my concern.
On the other side of that, I've seen it work for education. Matter of fact, I'm a teacher at McKinley Middle Magnet, which is a visual and performing arts school, and just last summer, Aaron Williams, who is the CEO of Digital Media, he established the Louisiana Art and Entertainment Film School through our facility. And as of this year, he's expanded it through the city and the area, and he now has over 90 students from various high schools. He told me McKinley, Tara, St. Joseph, Baker, and several others participating in this. And I see it as a as a diamond in the rough, because we can now have our talent trained here, stay here, live here, work here, and contribute to the tax base.
Okay, so you think then there are perhaps in the areas where we might lose some revenue that they're made up in other areas?
That's the way I see it.
Okay. Robert, what do you think?
Answer to that is
not
no.
at all. Not at all.
Not nearly the return that we need on that amount of incentive being given.
Okay.
We are not revenue neutral, and this program needs to be revenue neutral right now. The state's got financial problems. We don't have any business giving money away to anybody. And I agree with Erica over there. We cut higher education, and look, if Dr. Richardson, $145 million a year. How much do we cut higher education this year in the state of Louisiana? It's almost dollar for dollar, isn't it? So if we didn't give that, we could have put that back into our schools. And that's where our future lies, is in our children and in their education.
Exactly.
Okay. What about for business owners? Yvonne, I know that you are part of the business community. Where do you fall on this issue?
Well, from a business aspect, I feel that the tax incentive is a help in that it brings more jobs to the area. It involves the lower people or different types of businesses altogether. And to me, I think it's an incentive that really works as far as the businesses are concerned.
Okay. So then is it an issue of kind of measurement? Is it about kind of, perhaps understanding the total impact of the issue with regard to monies that might be lost in tax revenue and then how they are helping the benefiting the community in other areas? Wendell?
It seems to me, actually, that we need to consider where this is helping other areas. In other words, if you had a restaurant and it were near where a movie was being filmed, you probably would derive business from those participants. And it goes much further than that. That's just a minor example. But you got all sorts of businesses, motels, hotels, bringing in all these people. These people are spending money, and that's evidenced, by the newspapers and what have you, and media. So I think there's a lot of different aspects to the thing other than just we're, giving incentives away and we're not getting anything in return, because the state in general is certainly getting something in return.
Okay. Is it maybe, what concerns might you have then about, making sure that the taxpayers receive the maximum benefit from these types of incentives? John, what are your thoughts?
I think the maximum benefit is the ripple effect. By having the tax incentive, I mean, I think it's proven. I mean, I don't see any downside. So why are we here? I think we're here to make sure the upside continues. And the upside is the ripple effect, as he mentioned, the restaurants, the entertainment venues that the people that are here go to, the diversity that Louisiana is already a diverse state, but let's face it, any state can be more diverse. And nothing brings in diversity more than theater and art. Mm-hmm. And there's no downside to that. Now, I do agree with the concept that perhaps in lean years we have to consider perhaps not having the same amount of incentive given, especially when you look at cutting education and health. Right. And when we're not going to cut oil and gas incentive, or we're not going to cut film incentive. I think that makes a lot of people uncomfortable. Okay.
And so then, given that the concerns then about the cuts perhaps to education and weighing those against, you know, some of the benefits, the cultural benefits, and some of the other considerations, some of the programs for students, then is it something that we should consider then maybe perhaps revamping or even raising some of the credits, the tax credits that we offer to movie corporations, and or are we just competing with other states?
Should we ask everybody that's coming in, hey, are you coming in because of the incentive? I think they're going to all say yes. So they would get it. So, you know, that's a tough question.
Okay, so
how do you test it?
Okay.
How do you gauge the correctness of it?
Okay.
I see the film industry as a catalyst for cottage industries and major industries settling here in the state. I was on the phone with Aaron Williams, who is a producer, and he told me that his idea is for every project he has, he tries to establish a residence here for the actors and the crew in hopes that they'll stay here. And the other thing is, for every 20 people he brings in, he uses at least 150 local people to support what he's doing. So I see it as something that is really beneficial for the state, and maybe it could be tweaked here and there in down times, you know. I mean, we put up higher levies when we need to tweak the levies. So we can do something in tax incentives too.
What about the other aspects of this type of tax incentive? We have a lot of movie companies coming into the area. What about the image of Louisiana? How much difference does it make whether a film company presents Louisiana in a positive light or not so much? Melanie?
Movies, it's a popular industry all around, whether it's the elderly or the young. They always go and watch TV. I know I watch it with my grandma, the old movies. We love it. So for it to come down here, it gives us something to do, and then it interacts with the community as well, so if they can go. The thing with the incentive is we shouldn't have it for such a long period of time. It's like a marketing scheme. Get them to come, get them to flourish, and then they can stand on their own. That's what the incentive is for. So do we need it now? Yes. And then we'll let it grow. And like he said, in a couple years, it will be stable by itself that we don't need the incentive.
Okay. So then do you think some of this business would have come to Louisiana even without the incentives? Robert, I see you nodding your head there.
I don't believe it. If you got the talent, you got the people, you got the locations and everything, why shouldn't they come here? Okay. Louisiana's not exactly known for being a high-wage state.
Okay.
Let's get past that point. And as far as your original question, I do not like Louisiana being put up on screen or any media as in a negative manner. I don't like that. I don't think that I should be paying people money and giving them tax incentives to portray my state in a negative situation. I don't. That just doesn't go well with me.
Okay. That's all the time we have for this portion of our show. When we return, we'll be joined by a panel of experts to further explore Lights, Camera, Louisiana. Welcome back to Louisiana Public Square. Tonight we're discussing Louisiana's film industry tax incentives. Joining us now is our panel of experts. Glen Pitre is best known as the writer-director of movies such as The Man Who Came Back, Homefront, and Belisaire the Cajun. His work has been translated into more than 24 languages. In a 2006 book, film critic Roger Ebert named Pitre a legendary American regional director. Sherri McConnell serves as Executive Director of Louisiana Entertainment, a division of Louisiana Economic Development. Her office administers the state's entertainment tax incentive programs. Under her leadership, Louisiana's entertainment industry has contributed approximately $1.5 billion to the economy between 2008 and 2010. Dr. James Richardson is the John Ray Alumni Professor of Economics in the College of Business Administration at LSU. Dr. Richardson has worked as a forecaster for the Louisiana Revenue Estimating Conference since 1987 and has supervised studies on various aspects of the state budget. Patrick Mulhearn is the Director of Studio Operations at the Celtic Media Centre in Baton Rouge. The center is the first and largest design-built studio facility operating in Louisiana. Mulhearn is also the current president of the Louisiana Industry for Film and Entertainment Trade Association. Wendell, I believe you had a question for our panel.
Well, I did. And this could be answered by whomever. Many people have told me that there's, in the industry out there, a lot of times they tend to bring in actors from the other states other than Louisiana. And Louisiana is noted, actually, for having a lot of little theaters, very good one, right here in Baton Rouge, and produces a lot of good actors. And what I was wondering is that, does the state of Louisiana have some sort of liaison between the little theaters and the movie industry?
Well, I'll try to answer that for you. I mean, the state doesn't have, per se, someone specific to be a liaison between the little theaters or the actors and the productions that are coming in. But I can tell you that a lot of businesses have sprouted up that offer those services. Yeah. So we like that. Those are those entrepreneurs out there. Additionally, you have meetup groups in every area of the state that provide those opportunities to introduce the actors and the aspiring actors to the industry. And our website continues to be the go-to source and a resource for those folks that are looking to connect to the industry. So there's no one in the office that's specific to that, but it's all of our jobs to make that happen.
Well, that's good.
Ronald, I know you had a question for the panel.
I know Louisiana now. You're getting a lot of people to film movies in the state of Louisiana. The taxes they charge, do it stays here in the state of Louisiana?
The taxes they charge?
He's asking about the revenue. How do we make sure that the dollars that we are losing, perhaps, in opportunities with regard to tax revenue, how do we make sure that the money as a result of these productions stay in the state?
Well, first, understand that only tax credits are given on money that's spent in the state. That's the law. And so nobody gets a single tax credit unless they've spent the money first, and that is verified by a CPA and an audit. So the money has to be spent here before they're ever given a tax credit. You don't get the money up front, you have to spend the money first. So that's verified by a state audit. As far as then those tax credits going elsewhere, of course, they're only usable for someone who has a tax liability unless, of course, you transfer them to someone who does. So ultimately, that credit is benefiting Louisiana directly.
So do you perceive, I'll ask each of you, or give you each of you an opportunity to answer the question. So far, do you think it's been worth the bang for the buck?
You know, that's a question that's a choice. I mean, we are subsidizing the film industry, and it's succeeded by, I think, anyone's dreams, just how much production. I mean, you look back a few years ago, I don't think anybody was ready to believe there'd be that many films coming to Louisiana, because they weren't coming before. I mean, I've been making films in this state for 30 years, and back in the day, we could sit around a table, the people who were actually making movies here. It didn't happen. You get 1 or 2 Hollywood movies a year. Now you can't drive down the street without running into a production. It's really succeeded. The question on, is that good for the state, is something that everybody has to answer for themselves. I mean, I think it is. It's bringing in good paying jobs. It's bringing in a lot of benefits that are not direct to the jobs, but it's putting Louisiana up on the screen. It's making us known for something besides industries that may employ a lot of people but are polluting. Here's one that makes people laugh, makes people smile, makes people cry in the theater. There are a lot of intangibles that go with it. It's bringing people, there's in-migration from other places. You have people moving. I mean, I talked to the union rep in New Orleans, and he's complaining that you have people moving to Louisiana and pretending to be Louisianians because they want to work here. So they're claiming that they've lived, I had an uncle who used to live here, so, this is my home state now. We need those draws. I mean, if we don't want the young, we're having trouble with education and funding education, but if we don't want those college students when they got out of school to move to someplace else where there's more opportunity and more varied opportunity and more sense of glamour to the life there. And those are things the film industry does. Again, is it worth it? That's for each person to decide. But it's dollars and cents, and yet it's, again, more than dollars and cents.
Sherri?
Well, I mean, certainly I believe that it is well worth the money spent. It's an expensive program, but it's an investment. And so how do we make sure that there's a return on the investment? That's the key. So it's not just about attracting outside production and allowing Hollywood to come in and make movies and then leave, but hoping that not only will they stay, which many, many of them do. Again, 50% of the movies made in Louisiana now are by Louisiana companies. So often it's a way to introduce the industry to the state, and when they get here, they fall in love. And it's an easy sell once they get here. And so a lot of them stay. It's a great quality of life, and we have a lot of people staying. But we believe that our focus is on growing an indigenous industry. In fact, that's our mandate, is to grow a sustainable indigenous industry. So how do we use the incentives in the short term to grow an indigenous industry for the long term? And at some point, will we be self-sustaining? And we believe the only way to do that is to focus on growing our native talent. And that's where we think we have a competitive advantage. We're the most talented culture in the world. And if we can focus on bringing that business acumen to that talent and making our own filmmakers, so that Glen Pitre's not the only one making movies that's from Louisiana, but that we're creating filmmakers here, then it won't be about attracting Hollywood, but keeping our talent here. So I think we have to think of it as an investment. It's a loss leader. And while the state, it's a cost to the state as far as revenues in and revenues out, clearly local governments it's all positive, that they're getting a lot of tax benefit and a lot of revenue. So there are many ways to look at it. Clearly it's a wonderful opportunity for the entire state. There isn't an area of the state that isn't impacted by the industry. It is environmentally friendly. It has put us at the top of the list, which is nice for a change. So we think it's a nice fit. But also we have a very holistic approach. It's not just about film. It's also about music. It's also about live performance. It's also about interactive digital media. So our approach is very holistic. We're attracting industries that are playing in all of those sectors, and it's working. It's clearly working.
Okay. Dr. Richardson?
Yes. I guess I was brought here to be the negative side of the story. But I think as Sherri was saying, there is a plus and a minus. On the plus side, there's no doubt it's been an incredibly successful incentive program in terms of attracting the film industry. And that has been copied by other states. They want to do it. But then what they realize is it costs something. It's not free. And when we were saying on the little interview I had with the reporter from LPB, and I indicated that, look, over the last 3 years, we've averaged $145 million a year in credits. Now, what that means is that we, you and me and everybody else in this room, put their money together, and we sent them a check for $145 million. It's our money. Now, what do we get in return for that? Well, we got jobs. We got some jobs, 8,000 jobs. That means we paid $25,000 each for those jobs, approximately. Well, that's, and you understand why that brought people here. We paid, we got back in terms of revenue about $20 million, $22 million a year from that. So that was the trade-off. Now, the thing is, how do you get to a break-even point? Well, the way you have, it's going to be almost impossible to do that, because the incentive program is not something indigenous to Louisiana. It can be copied in every state in the union, and it has been. So that means that we're going to be competing forever with this incentive program. It's not going to go away. And indeed, the other thing we've done, and this is one of the elements, once you start a program, you better be sure you like it, because it's going to be there. Because what we've done is we've given companies, New Orleans, Baton Rouge, Shreveport, we've given them the incentive to make major investments. And those investments are going to be good as long as films keep coming to be here. And that incentive is a major part of the attraction. It's going to be very difficult to back away from it. Now, the question is, how can we possibly get to the point where we really don't have to do the incentive? And from my perspective, I don't see that as something that's going to happen. I think that's going to be, every year we're going to renew those, or every 4 years or however long we write them for, it's going to be renewed. And because, one, it has been successful in terms of bringing jobs. It's not been successful in terms of being a break-even. It's not a break-even program. And I think it's very difficult to see how it ever will be a break-even program.
Okay, Mr. Mulhearn?
I heard an interesting stat the other day that just absolutely floored me. In 2010, the average film union job in Louisiana paid $68,000 a year. That's pretty good. I don't know many industries that have an average salary of $68,000 a year. And Louisiana is third in the nation in film production. It's nice to be at the top of the list for something positive for a change. And on top of that, I think that Louisiana is finally ahead of the curve on something. You know, this is a state that needs to diversify its economy. We've relied on one or two industries for far too long. And when you start looking about the future of what the future holds for different industries, it's hard to say what the future is for oil and gas. However, if you look at film and entertainment, the thirst for American content is not going to go away. In fact, it's only going to grow. We all know how cheap it is to get a TV these days, and the developing world is picking up iPads and iPhones and any way to view American content. And so that demand for content is only going to grow. It's not going to go away. So we're ahead of the curve, and to speak to the point about where does that money go, you can't view it as just money that's not coming into the state treasury. I mean, I don't know who likes income tax, but of course, these are used to offset income tax. But what's better than that is that this is money that's going into local coffers. It's going into the coffers of East Baton Rouge Parish, Orleans Parish, Caddo Parish, Lafayette. And what's so great about what Sherri's office has done is they made sure it's a statewide industry. You have production in Alexandria now. You have production in Monroe. You have a show in Slidell right now. And of course, in the New Orleans and Baton Rouge, it's amazing what it's doing for our image. It's so hard to put a price tag on what it's doing for our image and the future possibilities. The studio that we have here in town, the Celtic Media Centre, played host to Twilight Saga Breaking Dawn Parts 1 and 2 earlier this year. We had people from as far away as France come to try to see what was going on. Again, they just wanted to take a peek. They made a special trip to Louisiana just to see where that was going on. And not only that, they're staying in hotels. They are spending money. It's hard to measure. There's a lot that falls outside what's measured in a production budget. Every time Sandra Bullock buys a house, every time Nicolas Cage gets arrested, that's money that's going in there that's not getting measured. And so it is so hard to put a price tag on it. I won't disagree with Dr. Richardson at all. I do think that it's hard to look at it as a positive ROI on the state treasury. But what you have to look at is bigger picture, longer term. because, again, we're investing in our future. It's more like putting money in an IRA. You don't want to pull out now. You don't want to pull back, even just because times are tough. You keep saving for retirement, and this state has got to save for its retirement and its future in an industry that will be around 50 years from now.
Okay.
Lindsay, you have a question? I was curious how the 35% came about. Where did that number come from for the incentives, the positive incentives to move the movie industry here? If we were an early adopter, wouldn't it seem right that our incentives would have been lower until competition came around?
It was.
They were?
They were, yeah.
Okay, what were they originally?
Well, I think they originally started at 20%.
25, I believe.
25.
Sorry, originally 25 was
15
50.
early on.
Yeah, there's 15.
And if you want to blame somebody, blame Canada. They're the ones who came up with the idea. I saw an interesting stat the other day. You know, there was a film industry in Louisiana before incentives, and in the 90s there were certain years you'd have about 20 major feature films shot here. But when you got to 2001, it was hard to name one. I think we goose-egged at 0. Well, if you look at what happened in the late 90s, Canada came up with an incentive, and so all those runaway productions that were leaving California started going up to Canada. We copied Canada in a sense, but we did it better. And by 2002, we'd actually started to pull. When the incentives came along in 2002, we'd actually started to pull productions in. By 2010, if I'm not mistaken, I think they had 125 major productions that filed for tax incentives. So that's impressive to go from 20 to 125 in less than 10 years.
A quick follow-up, Dr. Richardson, as an economist, you understand the principle of positive incentives to move people to act. Have y'all looked at the negative incentives to keep people from coming? At what level can these two lines cross, and that could be the incentive, the sweet incentive?
The negative incentive keeping who from coming?
The incentives where we lower the incentives, but we don't lose any business.
Oh, okay. I think, to go back and answer the question in full, why the incentives went up is because you had competition. Interstate competition, and this is what's going to happen in the future. If somebody else came in and said, okay, we're going to make that incentive 50%, we quickly have to either follow suit, or we have to say, well, wait a minute, you don't need that because, look, we have all these production facilities here. We have all this training here. We have all this industry that we already developed. So you won't have that in Georgia, or you won't have that in Michigan, or you won't have that in some other state. But if they make that incentive big enough, either we follow suit or we lose.
All states are facing recession right now.
Yeah, but all states are going after the same thing we're going after.
But the money's not there for the states.
Well, no, it's not necessarily there, but many states are seeing this as an element of, okay, this is how we get industry here, for the same reason we are. As a way of trying to build something up. Now, we have the first shot at it. We made the first move. And the question is, okay, how do we keep it? And are we able to, at some point, lower that incentive? Okay, wait a minute. They really don't need 35%. 30 is enough. Yeah, they'll keep coming.
Glenn, what has been your experience before and after the tax incentive was offered by Louisiana?
One thing that figures into this is there's a certain critical mass that we didn't used to have and we have now. Because if you're only getting a handful of productions a year, not only are you only getting the handful, but they're coming here and they're having to bring in all their actors because there are no local casting directors to connect them to the local talent. And they're having to bring in all their crew. And they're having to bring in all the trucks because the trucks aren't here because they can't be busy. When you get a certain level, which through the efforts of these guys we have now, you want to rent the trucks are here. And if you don't like this vendor, there's another one, down the street. And if you want it, Panavision cameras, you can get them in Louisiana. There's a film lab. Film labs are closing all over the country because people are switching to digital. We got a film lab that opened in Louisiana in the last couple of years. We have a lot of things that, again, lower the cost. When I wear my producer's hat and, I'm looking at, okay, the last picture we did, do we ship the film? This was a co-production with France. Do we ship the film back to Paris or do we process here? Well, it was a no-brainer. We process in Louisiana. That meant those dollars stayed here. Do we bring in the sound man from France that they want? oh no, we got all these sound people here because they're here because there's that many productions, because they're making $68,000 a year and can live where they want to live. So, you know, lowering the incentives, can you tweak? Sure. But you do indeed have to respond to the competition. And it's not just the other 49 states, it's also other countries, be it Canada or be it whatever.
How do you feel about government picking winners and losers with these tax breaks? Companies who've been in Louisiana a long time, family-owned businesses that don't have the opportunity. And so basically government saying oil industry, movie industries, these are going to be the future, these are going to be the winners, and we're going to stand behind those companies. Is that an abdication of family-owned businesses and other businesses in Louisiana?
Well, I have a family-owned film business, so I'm the wrong guy to ask on that.
with subsidies.
Yeah. We're here before the subsidies, and you know, if they go away, we'll still be here. But that's a rare example, and we don't hire them. I mean, we were making a movie every 3 or 4 years.
Dr. Richardson?
Well, I think every state subsidizes something. That's just the way it is, if we like it or not. I don't think when they chose the film industry they had any idea it was going to be quite that successful. It turned out to be a lot more successful than they ever thought. And that's a good thing. It's not a bad, that's a good thing. Except it costs the state more money. It costs the state a lot more money than they thought probably. Every business looks for the brakes. If the tax breaks and regulatory rules, they all look for the breaks. This one, I think, stands out a little bit more than in the others. The other industries, as I said, this is a credit. This is the nicest form of an incentive. I, the state of Louisiana, write you a check, give it to you, and you get it, and it's yours. You get to take that away from your other expenses, so your expenses are really not 100%. Your expenses are 65%. So it's much smaller.
CJ had a question.
Yes. I'm going a different direction with this one. How does the state justify giving these film incentives at the same time they're cutting funds in education and tuition rates are going up? Because we do need people to fill in these jobs that go behind the film industry. But why would you want someone from a school where funds were cut and the education might be a little bit lower than from schools that might be of a higher quality?
I think it's they never, in terms of looking at this, the first thing you note is that, say, within the current budget year, which is what we're in, and we're all facing a tight budget, the credits are already out there. You can't cut them. They've been obligated. It's a contract. Now, what we could do is, if we wanted to do away with it, we're talking about something 2 years or maybe even longer into the future where people are making contracts. So this is a contract that we have. We can't get the certified credits that we now have on the books, they're there. So we can't cut those and say, okay, we're going to take that money and give to education. That's not an option. So our options are very simple, is we have to think about this from a long-term perspective, not a short-term budgetary perspective. And we have to decide if it's a program we like, if we want to somehow make it work in the future. And I think the other thing that Sherri said that we have not really talked about a great deal is that you have 4 credits. The film industry is by far the most noticeable and the largest. But you also have the digital media industry, which could be a growth area, get a certain very attractive to younger people, trying to get the population back up in the state. That's the digital. You have the sound industry, and then you have the live production industry. And the live production industry, if they work, they have to bring people in from outside the state for tourists, because we aren't a big enough market to fill the auditoriums every night for 6 months. So I think those are if I were looking at this and trying to think about this as a package, I look at that as a package and say, okay, it's a package that will make revenue neutral. We never make the film industry credit revenue neutral. In fact, I don't think we will. Now, if you look as a package of those 4, and they all are interrelated, that's a possibility. That's how I would approach it. But it's not a short-term budgetary issue, because it's a commitment we have.
Yes,
Sherri, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, so many things. Number one, I'd like to say that there are other states that offer more generous tax credits, and they haven't come close to us yet. And I think that's because we're not like other states. This is ours to own. We own this industry, and it's because we have a unique culture that is very, very attractive to the creative industries. And that's why it's worth the investment for us. But there are other states that are trying to do the same thing, and they'll never be able to do it. So, having said that,
unless they dig a bayou.
Even then, I think there's I suggest that our natural creative talent is our greatest renewable natural resource. And so if we think of it as a natural resource and we add value to it and we export it, just like we do sugarcane and oil and gas, then perhaps we have a sustainable industry. We've got a lot to do to get there, but we're on our way. I do think we are on our way. So having said that, I do think that the state needs to think about the long term. And how are we going to, in fact, make sure that there is a return on that investment? And I agree with Dr. Richardson. Clearly, there's a convergence in the industry, and this holistic package that we offer. Nobody else offers that. I can tell you, some people have film, some people have sound recording, but nobody has all four. And let me give you an example. Patrick was actually here representing Celtic, but Lampton Enoch was going to be here representing Moombot Studios. We feel like they're a poster child of exactly what we hope to see happen in the state, and that is a local talent, a gentleman by the name of Bill Joyce, who started as a children's author, has done Roly Poly Oly and Meet the Robinsons, all that, is a great animator now. He's created an animation studio. Well, that animation studio, which has taken advantage of the film incentive program, is also now developing an iPhone app, an iPad app, taking advantage of our interactive tax credit. And now they are doing that, and they are going to be going on the road and possibly taking advantage of the live performance tax credit. So that there's a company that has grown up around a great local Louisiana talent and will be a catalyst for continued growth. They now have over 35 animators in Shreveport in a studio that's like walking into Pixar. It's amazing, and it's homegrown Louisiana stuff. So we are building a local indigenous industry, but it's around our local talent. And so even if it means that some of these people are coming in from out of state and we make them Louisianans, or we introduce them to Louisiana talent, I think it is an opportunity that the state recognizes to be a great one, and it's uniquely ours. It's uniquely ours.
Well, I think we want people to come from out of state.
Indeed.
I mean, my catchword for the next whoever the governor general or whoever governor general is, I would like to get the population growing so much that we get our congressional district back.
Indeed.
And we can't reproduce that fast. We need to have other people come from outside the state. That's what we need, and that's the best thing to do.
I tell people all the time, LSU won a national championship because it kept its best athletes here in the state, and then it reached the point where it was stealing the best athletes out of other states.
That's not use that word stealing. We were recruiting them.
That's right. That's right. We're pulling them in finally.
We're attracting
them. Yeah. So it's the same kind of concept with this. You've got to give people a reason to stay. You've got to give them a real opportunity.
And a reason to come.
Yeah. And a reason to come back.
And one thing I'd like to add is, as much as it tears all of us up to see those cuts in education, it's probably wrong to look at, the money's going into film instead of going into education, because as my friend here said, every state is giving out incentives. So the choice is, do we give hundreds of $1 millions to get, one German company to come and put a car plant? Or do we spread those hundreds of $1 millions and get, a whole raft of entrepreneurs spread throughout the state, not in one location, diversified enough and diffuse enough that one decision made back in Stuttgart, Germany can't shut it all down and it's gone.
That's another good point. You can't easily outsource these jobs. You can't take The Curious Case of Benjamin Buttons, put it in Bangalore, India, and expect the same results. These are jobs that have to stay here in the U.S. in order for them to work.
Have you ever been approached by a production company and said, we'd love to come to Louisiana, 30% is good, but we really want 40%, knowing that they're out there shopping that same thing around the other states? You ever feel that competition to raise it from 30 to 40?
clearly there was an argument made in '09 to do just that. That Georgia was nipping at our heels, and they had a 35% incentive. I will tell you that clearly there are companies out there that are shopping tax credits and go from state to state, and they have no commitment to Louisiana or whatever state they land in. But it hasn't. We're not anxious necessarily to up the credit. I doubt seriously we'll see that happen, and we've managed to maintain our lead substantially and continue to add to it. And what we find the producers like is stability. They love our workforce. They love our infrastructure. We've built an ecosystem around this industry now, and they know what they're going to get when they're here. And plus, they can't get gumbo in Michigan, And I got to tell you, they love the creative culture of this state. And many of them, if aren't buying second homes, are buying first homes. And we've got many entrepreneurs who came here because the tax incentives brought them here, but stayed because they fell in love.
And cost of living. Baton Rouge is 1/2 of New York City. It's about 2/3 of what LA is. That's our secret weapon. No matter what somebody else is offering, we've always got a cost of living on our side.
And what about the elimination of the tax credit for the construction of movie sets? What impact has that had?
Well, there was an infrastructure tax credit. It caused us some problems, but it certainly helped us build real infrastructure, and Celtic is a perfect example of that. So we have built the bricks and mortar infrastructure around the industry, and we think we've got an adequate supply of studio space. I would like to see any new infrastructure be market-driven instead of tax credit-driven, and we think we've built an industry and a market enough to any infrastructure that wants to grow up around it is because they've got a market to service.
And I will say, just recently, I think it's 10,000 square foot costume rental house and 10,000 square feet full of costumes open in New Orleans, and they got no tax incentives to do that. They had missed the boat on the infrastructure, but there's enough business that those things are happening on their own. So it's a testament to the success of the program.
Most of our business is $20 million features and under. So the Twilights and so forth, they're popular and glamorous, but the fact is our niche market is $20 million features and under, and most of them are $10 million and under. And 95% of every dollar of that budget is spent in the state of Louisiana. So that's because they can, because you can make a movie in this state from soup to nuts. There isn't anything you can't do in the state to make a movie now. And so those goods and services, that infrastructure has grown up around it.
I can say that after the storm, the movie industry came down to Chalmette High, because they filmed one of the basketball movies, I'm not sure which one, in our gym. And I know for a fact that sparked the imagination of our students, because they went and everybody got to go sit in the stands and watch them make the movie. So when they film down here, you also have people watch them do it and say, hey, this could be a new avenue for me to go in. So it's not only economy and money and money and money, it's the fact that you're getting positive attraction to Louisiana outside of, okay, yeah, we have great gumbo, but look, we have great movies coming here, and it's not the negative things that it used to be. So it's not just money, it's a positive aspect that's being brought, and I love that, so yay.
Thanks.
I'd just like to ask since there is Louisiana talent here, how can someone find you to maybe become employed or to show off their talents?
Well, through our website, louisianaentertainment.gov, will connect you to a lot of productions. So any production that's going on is listed there, and often it's just about reaching out. I mean, one of the nice things is you can get in on the ground floor here, and if you work hard, you've got an opportunity in this industry. So certainly, I would suggest going there. Maybe Glen has some ideas as far as he's a man that makes movies. So
I mean, people find you. I mean, our workforce. I mean, normally we're just a few people, and then we go into production, and depending on the production, if it's a documentary, there may be 20 people working. If it's a feature film, there may be 120 people working plus the cast. And I mean, folks follow the websites, they find us. I mean, not a day goes by that I don't open my email and there's resumes, and they want to come and they want to intern and they want to work, and they're offering services. And you know, they don't hear from us for weeks or months, but then we go into production and we track down all those people and say, you know, where's that picture you promised to send, or you know, what size truck you had, or what is it? Because, you know, when you need, the thing about movies is putting one together is like dragging the biggest weight you can imagine behind you forever. And you're never going to get there. You're never going to get it. And one day it goes whoosh, and the financing's there, and all of a sudden the cast is there, and then you're on the set, and there are people you don't even know what they all do, but they're all, you know, working, and everybody's working together to put this dream together.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Yeah. We've run out of time for our question and answer segment. We'd like to thank our panelists, Mr. Pitre, Ms. McConnell, Dr. Richardson, and Mr. Mulhearn for their insight on this month's topic. When we come back, we'll have a few closing comments.
Well, everyone likes the movies, it looks like, or they want to be in it, watch them, or certainly are looking at benefits for Louisiana.
You can't blame them. There's a certain draw about the movies.
There is a certain draw, and word has it from one of our guests who was here in the studio that there may be a television series, a regular series coming to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So we'll have to be staying tuned for that.
I'll watch for it.
All right, that's all the time we have for this edition of Louisiana Public Square. We encourage you to visit our website at lpb.org/public square. Take this month's survey and tell us your favorite Louisiana movie. You can also view extended interviews and sign up to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. While you're there, post a comment about tonight's show. We'd love to hear from you, like we did from several viewers following last month's program, Budget Battle 2011. Well, Stella wrote, I do not understand the opposition to taxes, even small increases. While Joanne wrote, I think it's wrong to target a select few, such as a tax on cigarettes, when considering a tax to benefit education. And Celeste wrote, smokers do not pay their fair share. I don't smoke, but I do drink. I would have no problem with the sin tax on alcohol. Well, thanks for the feedback, ladies. Remember, you can track what's happening in the legislature every night on LPB's Capitol Beat at 6:57 and 9:57 p.m.
6 bills have been filed this legislative session to address verification of U.S. citizenship for Louisiana workers. Just how big a problem is illegal immigration in our state? And should we draft legislation similar to Arizona's controversial bill? Catch an encore broadcast of immigration reform in Louisiana next month on Louisiana Public Square. Thanks for watching, and good night.
Good night, everyone.
For a copy of this program, call 1-800-973-7246 or go online to www.lpb.org. Support for this program is provided by the men and women of the Louisiana Forestry Association. Through sustainable forestry, LFA members promote the health and productivity of Louisiana's forests for generations to come. And the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting.